What does it mean by constructor? Constructor means we want to construct, we want to create, mandelgi. So we want to make an object. And if we have a constructor, so we can create the object. Let's say we have X and Y. So we can define one method, we call it init. So this init means constructor. And we have self to indicate its object or its instance, and we will have two variables or two data members. So let's say this X, it will be an argument for the variable X, and this YY will be an argument for the variable Y. Then we will make the constructor. This one is for creating X and Y. There are two data members. So we learned that this kind of constructor, it is to initialize the state of new objects. So we use the underbar, and the word init. Init means initialize. We want to initialize, we want to initiate, and we have another underbar. So self is the mandatory for the object variable, and yeah, we have two data members here. It depends on the problem, because we are going to make a point, so we have X and Y. Then we want to input two data members. If you want to make another problem, yeah, you need to look at the data member of that problem. If we have the class of student, let's say I want to include the student ID and the student name. Okay, then it means I can make two variables, student ID and student name here. So it runs when the client use the init keyword. If you look at the Python, if there is init keyword, then it is constructor. And it does not specify a return type. Okay, there is no return type. And then it implicitly returns the new object being created. So once you call the class, then we will create a new object. If a class has no constructor, then Python gives it a default constructor. So default constructor means we have a basic constructor. A basic constructor is something with object parameters. So it requires self parameters. So it requires self parameters. And for its data members also needs it. So if you have the X, yeah, you need to define X. If you need Y, then you need to define Y here. Then if you want to run the code, you need to modify the client program. The client program, last time we learned about the test.04.py. So since there are two parameters, it requires to put two arguments every time we create the object. Okay, what does it mean by two arguments? So this is the first argument, this is the second argument. The first argument means this will be the value of xx. This will be the value of yy. What is xx and what is yy? This is the xx and this is the yy. So every value that we define, here is 2, so here is 3. Then the x of the object P1 is 2. The y of object P1 is 3. So we want to create another object which is P2. P2 0.4, 3. Then based on this code, the xx is equal to the variable x and the yy is equal to the variable y. Then we can see that 4 is the value of x of object P2 and 3 is the value of y in object P2. So object P1 and object P2 has different value of y. And then if you want to translate, we learn about the translate means we want to change the value. Then I can change the value of x and I can change the value of y. In this case, the x will have a new value. So P2 originally is 4. We are going to add with 3, then the new value will be 7. P2 originally is 3, and then we are going to add with 2, then now it becomes 5. For the distance, yeah, we will just measure the distance between P2 and P1. So it means 7,5. We are going to look at the distance with 2,3. 2,3 is the point of P1. If we are doing the distance from origin, means we just calculate the value of P2 and P2 itself. Now, what if the arguments are blank? Okay, what does it mean by arguments? So let me show you. Okay, we have this argument. What if this argument blank? We know that there are two arguments. The first argument is for x and the second argument is for y. The first argument here is for x and this argument is for y. But here we have no argument. In this case, it will be I think I already updated this one. Okay, I already update with the x equals to 0 and y equals to 0. So if you remove this one, okay, if you don't include anything, then it will be errors. The error message, okay, now you need to try to understand the error message. The error message show that it missed two required positional arguments. So the error is here. The error is in the line number 10. The line number 10 here, P3 equals to point without argument. So in this case, we should put two values. The first value will be for x and the second value would be for y. Since it is blank, then it is error. That's why we need to have the default constructor. The default constructor, if you don't have the default constructor, it will show errors and give the message that you need to define two parameters. So we can define the default values so that it will work when no arguments are given. In this example, I just give you the x equal to 0 and y equals to 0. But of course, you can define any number. Let's say you want to define x equals to 5 or y equals to 3. That's possible. Okay. So if I put x equals to 0 and y equals to 0, then it means the default value x and y is 0 when there is no given parameters. So if I do not put anything, okay, now let me get back to the point.py. So in the point.py, in the constructor, originally has no default value. If I put x equals to 0 and then y equals to 0, then it becomes a default constructor. Now you can run again. The first is P1. And then the second print is P2. The third is P3. So when you print P3, we have no value. There is no value in the argument. Then the result is 0 and 0. So this is the meaning by the default value. The rest is just the translate and then the distance measure and the distance from origin. Okay, so this client program is the same. This client program, let's say if you have P1 equals to 0.2, 3, P2 is 4, 3, and P3 is point without argument. Then when you print this, the result is 2 and 3. If you print this one, the result is 4 and 3. If you print this one, the result is 0 and 0. Why? Because here the default value is 0 and here the default value is 0. Now, yeah, it becomes more complicated. When we deal with the object-oriented, there is a concept, we call it encapsulation. So this encapsulation means we are going to hiding implementation details of an object from its client. So encapsulation provides abstraction. So the word is to separate the external view from the internal view. It means that I want to separate the behavior from the state. The encapsulation protects the integrity of an object's data. What does it mean? I can just giving you the easy example. Now, when you have the object P1, when you have the object P1, and if I want to know what is the value of X, you can directly get the value of X. If I want to know P1 dot Y, so I can know what is the value of Y. Okay. We call this is public data member. When it is a public data member, then whenever you want to access the data, you can see it. But some data might be private. Private? Do you know private? Yeah. It is for the individual. You cannot share the data. You cannot open the data. For example, if I want to create a class about bank account. So in the bank account, you will have the bank account number. And then let's say you have the bank account, the bank balance. The bank balance means the money that you have in the bank. Do you want to share the data to other people? Of course, you do not want. Then you need to make it as a private field. A field can be declared private, so you cannot access the data. No code outside the class can access or change it. It means only the class can access the data. So only you who know the class can access the data. In Python, we will declare in the constructor, again, we can use init, and then let's say I don't have any argument, so just self. So in this case, we need to define the variable with the underbar. So if I have the value of X, so this is the variable name. For the security purpose, you need to put underbar. Let's say I have bank account, okay, and then I have the bank account number, and then I have the balance. So those two are the data members. Then if you want to create the data in the class, you can make underbar bank account number, and then you can create underbar balance. By giving these two underbar, it will be a private data. So in any case, data should be safe and secure. So underbar X means a variable X is defined as a private variable in the class. Now let's look at the example. I'm still using the point. I'm still using the class point. Now let's modify. This is the original point.py. We have the self.x, we have self.y. So let's change the data into a private by giving two underbar. Okay, in the constructor, I will make this two underbar and then two underbar. Okay. Then this data will be private. You cannot access this data from other location. Then if you try to access this one, okay, so if you try to run, then it will show error. The error is the point object has no attribute X. So this is the developer agreement when you want to make an attribute, and if the attribute is private, then you can put the underbar. So if you execute the client, then there will be errors. So client code sees an error when accessing the private fields. That's why we learn about the accessor and mutator. You still remember? In the previous sections, we learned about the accessor. It means we can access the data. We can access the field. In this case, if I have X and if I have Y with the private, so I need to make accessor. This is accessor. Okay. This is the accessor. This is another accessor. So this get X is to access the data of X, and this Y is the method to access Y. So if you don't provide this one, of course, you cannot see the data. So by giving this method, it means you allow other people to access the data. And then we have the set XY. This is the mutator. Mutator means we want to modify, we want to change the value. Now we are going to change the value of X and Y. The value of X and Y, X will be the new of X, which is private, and Y will be the new value of Y, which is private. In order to get those data, we need to use get X and get Y. So in this case, you still make the point by two arguments, which is 2, 3. Then I know that this is the X is 2 and the Y is 3. And if I want to print the data, then I need to call the method. The method is getX. I need to call the method getY. So this is the getY. If I set a new value, set xy is 5 over 6, then the new x will be 5 and the new y will be 6. And if I again print it, then it will show the new value. Now let's change the point.py. Okay, let's change the value. Okay, so we already have a very long code about the point. Now let's modify with this one. Yeah, actually you can just put the underbar x for every of the variable and underbar y for every of the variable of y. So if I have this one this is the underbar x, it refers to x, so underbar y, it refers to y. So every of your definition of the data should be also using underbar, underbar. It should use underbar, underbar. It should use underbar, 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 underbar. Okay. Now I think I will just copy this new code to make it more function. So if you look at this structure, so if you look at the structure on the left panel, now you can see the constructor, and then you have get x, get y, set x, y, set location, translate distance, distance from origin. Then the task now becomes very complex. Get x, I want to get the value of x. Get y, I want to get the value of y, and then set xy, I want to set a new value for the x and y. Now let's make a new Python file. Test point 06. So the test point 06 is this one. Okay, hope you know this one. I want to import from the point.py, and I want to import the point class. So I have a min function. So I run the min function here, and I'm creating a new object p1. So 2, 3. Now I'm creating the value of x by using the function getX, and then I'm going to access the y by the method getY. Set xy is to set a new value, and then I would like to get x and y again. Then the result will be 2, 3. 2, 3 is from the first, and 5, 6 is from the second. Okay. So I'm updating with 2 accessor and 1 mutant. So we can provide methods to get an or set of field value. So in this case, it is a read only. You know the meaning by read only? If you don't use this way, you can update the X. If you still remember, when we are in the test point 2, in the test point 2, if you still remember, when we create a point, so we can change the value of x just giving any number. So 2 will be the value of x of object p1. This is correct. But when you have a new data, let's say I back again to the bank account. So if we have the bank account balance, so do we want other people to change the balance? Of course, we will not allow this one. That's why we need to make the read-only access. So that's why we will need this method to access the X, and this will be only for reading the data, because this is the accessor. And if we want to allow the user or the client to change the field, so we create the mutator. In this case, we are creating a new method set xy. So the x will be the same with the XX, and the Y will be the same with the YY. Okay, then we have like this one, the one that you saw in the test Python 06. Then in final in the summary for the point.py, we will have this class diagram. Okay, this is the class diagram. So when I gave you the class diagram like this one, you can have idea to translate this one into this code. So you know that this is the class name. The class name, yeah, this is class point. And then we have two data members, X and Y. So in the first part, we learned that the symbol, you still remember the symbol here? The symbol, if it is plus, we usually call this is the public data. So if you change to minus, like this one, so if you have minus, then it is private data. You can see here, it is minus, it is also minus. Then it means that X and Y are the private data. Next, I have the init. So the init here is the constructor. And there are two arguments, XX and YY. And we have the default value, which is 0. So when we create a new object, if there is no argument, the value will be 0. And then we have translate dx and dy. So we have two data. We have set location, new x and new y. Set location, new x and new y. Translate, we have the self dx and dy. So we have dx and dy. Distance. So distance, we have other. Other means another point. So we can say that this is a written function. You can specify this written function, or yeah, sometimes you don't need to mention this one. For example, if you have this distance from origin, yeah, it means this is a function. Even though we have written, yeah, sometimes we can just omit the written. So we have get x, yeah, we have a written, get y, we have a written, and set xy. Okay. So in this case, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 methods, and we have 2 data members, and we have 1 constructor. Okay. Then yeah, you can do something like this one. I'm not sure if we can do this one, test point 07. So if I run this, other x, oh, okay, I okay. So whenever you change the data member to a private, you need to change also the other kind of objects. In this case, I have object other, and then we also need to put underbar. We also need to put underbar to indicate that this data is private. Point object has no attribute x and y. It is in the math square. Okay, this one. Then I need to put the underbar, and I need to put underbar. Then, yeah, there is no error for this code. First, we create the point P1. P1 dot get x is 2. P1 dot get y is 3. And then P2 is 3, 4. If I get the P2 get x, it is 3, and get y is 4. I'm going to translate P1 into 2 and 1. Then P1 will become 4.4. Now I would like to check the distance between P1 and P2. So 4.4. Okay. So I'm going to check it, and we want to check the distance. We want to print the distance. In this case, we are going to check the distance from the origin, but because I do not print it, then there is no result. Okay. So you can just print or like this one, print. And you will get the result like this one. Okay. So what is the benefit of this encapsulation? Okay. When I mentioned to you, it gives the abstraction between object and its client. Abstraction means, yeah, we do not share the data directly. So we want to protect an object from unwanted access by clients. Yeah, as I mentioned to you, a bank application forbids a client to change an account balance. So if you have money in your bank, and then you will not allow anybody to change the money except the bank itself. And this kind of encapsulation, yeah, you can change the class implementation. For example, I know the point is using x and y, but we can change this one into polar coordinates. Polar coordinates is this using the radius and angle. So using the radius and angle. And this allows you to constrain object state invariance. So it is only allow for the points with non-negative coordinates. So there are many things we can learn for the encapsulation. Okay, before I continue, then let's have a break. Okay, I'll continue after the break.